The Christmas promise that never came. Share this story if family loyalty should flow both ways. What would you have done in her shoes? They promised me Christmas morning with the grandchildren. Swore it would be magical. Come stay with us, Grandma Dorothy. My daughter Jennifer said over the phone, her voice warm with what sounded like genuine affection. The kids want to wake up Christmas morning with you here. Tyler keeps asking when you are coming. And Sophia drew you a picture of Santa, bringing presents to our house with you in it. It will not be the same without you, Mom. It really will not. So I packed my best nightgown, the one with tiny embroidered flowers that made me feel less like furniture, and more like someone who belonged in a family photograph. I packed my reading glasses with the rhinestone chain, my blood pressure medication in its careful weekly dispenser, my arthritis cream that smelled like wintergreen, and every ounce of hope I had left in my 72-year-old heart that still beat with the stubborn optimism of someone who refused to give up on love. I took the Greyhound bus from Phoenix to Denver. 8 hours of highway stretching through desert and mountains. 8 hours of strangers reading paperback novels and teenagers with earbuds and traveling salesmen, making quiet phone calls. But I didn't mind the long journey. Jennifer had sounded so sincere, so warm, so much like the daughter I remembered from years ago, when she still called me just to talk about her day. We have got the guest room all ready for you, she had said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. Fresh sheets, extra blankets, because I know you get cold. Mom, the kids have been asking about your gingerbread cookies every single day since Thanksgiving. Tyler wants to help you make them this year. The bus pulled into Union Station at 3:15 on Christmas Eve afternoon, right on schedule, despite the weather warnings we had heard over the driver's radio. December snow was falling thick and steady, turning the world soft and white, muffling the sounds of traffic and conversation. I stood at the designated pickup area with my small rolling suitcase, the red one I had bought specifically for this trip because it seemed festive and hopeful, watching families embrace under the covered walkway. Children were running toward grandparents with arms outstretched. Couples were kissing hello after long separations. Parents were gathering adult children, returning home for the holidays. Everyone belonged somewhere. Everyone was being claimed by someone who had been waiting, watching, anticipating their arrival. I waited 47 minutes before checking my phone the first time. No missed calls, no texts explaining any delay or traffic problems. Just the December wind cutting through my wool coat like a blade, and the growing certainty that something had gone terribly wrong. The coat had been another purchase for this trip. Navy blue with silver buttons, bought on sale at Macy's because I wanted to look like the kind of grandmother who belonged in Christmas photos. The kind who got invited places because people wanted her there, not because they felt obligated to include her. At 4:15, I called Jennifer's number with fingers that were starting to lose feeling despite my warm gloves. Straight to voicemail, her voice bright and efficient. "Hi, you have reached Jennifer Martinez. I cannot come to the phone right now, but leave a message and I will get back to you as soon as possible." "Hi, sweetheart." "It is Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice steady and cheerful. "I am here at the station like we planned. Just outside door B like you said, running a little late. No problem at all. Just let me know where you are and I will wait right here." I called again at 4:30. Still voicemail. This time, I didn't leave a message, just hung up and stood there. Watching my breath form small clouds in the cold air. A man pushing a stroller smiled at me as he passed, probably wondering why an elderly woman was standing alone in the snow with her suitcase. A teenage girl helped her grandmother navigate the slippery sidewalk, both of them laughing about something private and warm. A couple my own age walked by holding hands, the woman carrying a poinsettia plant wrapped in festive paper. Everyone had somewhere to go. Everyone was part of someone else's Christmas Eve story. By 5 of the clock, my feet were numb inside my practical snow boots, the ones I had bought specifically for this visit, imagining myself building snowmen with 8-year-old Tyler and 5-year-old Old Sophia, teaching them how to make proper snow angels like I would taught their mother 30 years ago. The boots were supposed to keep me warm and steady on icy sidewalks, supposed to be part of the grandmother costume I had assembled for this holiday performance. I sat on a metal bench near the information kiosk and watched the last few families collect their holiday travelers. A woman about my age was hugging a young man who looked exactly like her, both of them crying happy tears. An older gentleman was lifting a toddler high in the air while the child squealed with delight. A family of 6 was gathering luggage and coordinating who would ride in which car, all talking over each other with the comfortable chaos of people who knew they belonged together. That is when I made the mistake of opening Facebook on my phone. Not because I am addicted to social media, I barely understand most of it, but because sometimes Jennifer posts family updates there before she remembers to call me directly. Sometimes I find out about school plays and soccer games, and doctor appointments through pictures that pop up on my screen days after they happen. I opened the app with cold fingers that fumbled on the small screen, squinting at the bright display in the gray afternoon light. And there they were, all of them. My daughter Jennifer, in a red velvet dress that I had never seen before, arms wrapped around her husband Marcus, who was wearing a green sweater that looked expensive. Both children in matching Christmas pajamas covered in reindeer and snowflakes, sitting cross-legged on the floor surrounded by wrapping paper and toy boxes and the kind of abundance that comes from having 2 sets of grandparents competing for attention. A Christmas tree blazed with lights in the background, perfectly decorated with glass ornaments and golden ribbon, the kind of tree that takes hours to arrange just right. Marcus's parents, Harold and Susan, were sitting proudly on the leather couch behind them, Harold holding Tyler on his lap while Susan had her arm around Sophia. Both older adults were beaming with the satisfaction of grandparents who had front row seats to Christmas morning. Magic, the caption read. Christmas magic with our complete family. So grateful for everyone who makes our house a home. Feeling blessed beyond measure. Christmas morning family time blessed, grateful complete family. I stared at that word for a full minute. Complete family. I studied every corner of the photo, searching for evidence of a place set for me somewhere, just outside the frame. An extra chair pulled up to the circle, a coffee cup waiting on the side table, wrapped presents with my name on them sitting nearby. Anything to suggest that someone was missing, that the picture wasn't actually complete. There was nothing. No space for Dorothy. No acknowledgement that I had traveled 8 hours through 3 states to be part of their complete family Christmas. No indication that anyone had even remembered I was supposed to be there, sitting in that circle, holding grandchildren, who were supposed to know that I loved them enough to cross the country for a hug. I looked at the timestamp on the photo, posted 43 minutes ago. While I had been standing in the snow, checking my phone for messages that weren't coming, they had been opening presents and taking pictures and declaring themselves complete without me. I didn't cry, not yet. The tears felt frozen somewhere behind my eyes, too shocked to fall. I just closed the phone, stood up on legs that had gone stiff from cold and waiting, and started walking toward the taxi stand. My suitcase wheels caught on the slush and struggled through the wet snow. But I kept moving away from the station. Away from the promise, away from the illusion that I still mattered to the people I had spent my whole life loving. The walk to the taxi stand felt longer than it probably was, each step deliberate and heavy. I passed a coffee shop where families were gathered around small tables, sharing hot chocolate and Christmas cookies. I passed a bookstore with lights in the window and a display of holiday stories. I passed a flower shop where someone was buying a bouquet of red roses, probably for a romantic Christmas Eve dinner. Normal people, doing normal holiday things with people who had remembered to show up for them. 2 weeks before Christmas, Jennifer had called me at my small apartment in Phoenix. That should have been my first warning sign. Should have triggered the alarm bells that come from decades of learning to read between the lines of my daughter's communication patterns. Jennifer doesn't usually call unless she needs something, or unless guilt has built up enough pressure to require addressing. It was a Tuesday evening. I remember because Tuesday is when I usually call my neighbor Mrs. Chen to check on her arthritis, and I almost didn't answer the phone because I thought it might be a telemarketer interrupting my routine. "Hi, Mom, how are you feeling?" Her voice had that careful tone people use when they are about to ask for something. Too bright, too interested, too focused on my well-being in a way that usually preceded a request for money or babysitting or some other favor that would be presented as an opportunity for me to feel useful. I told her I was fine, mentioned that my arthritis was acting up with the weather change, the way it always does when desert winter brings those sharp temperature drops. But nothing serious, nothing that required intervention or worry. Said I was planning a quiet Christmas at home, just me and my small artificial tree and the radio programs that play old holiday music. Maybe heat up a small ham from the grocery store. Watch some old movies on television. Call it a day. There was a pause on her end, the kind of calculated silence that meant she was choosing her words carefully. Then, "Actually, Mom, Marcus and I were talking. The kids have been asking about you constantly since Thanksgiving. Tyler keeps wanting to know when Grandma Dorothy is coming to visit, and Sophia asks every day if you got the picture she drew for you in art class. Would you consider coming to Denver for Christmas? We would love to have you here for Christmas morning." That phrase. We would love to have you. Not the kids want you here, or it would be nice if you came, but we would love to have you, as if this invitation was coming from genuine desire, rather than childhood pressure or family obligation. And then, Tyler keeps saying Christmas isn't real Christmas without his Grandma Dorothy. He wants to show you his new science kit and teach you the card game he learned at school. And Sophia has been practicing a song she wants to sing for you. Something in my chest loosened when she said that. Something that had been tight and careful for so long, I had forgotten what it felt like to breathe deeply. It had been so long since anyone had specifically requested my presence rather than just tolerating it. So long since someone had said they wanted me there, not for what I could bring or contribute, but simply because I was me. "Are you sure there is room?" I asked, because I knew from previous visits that space in their house was always carefully calculated. Always arranged around Marcus's parents, who lived 30 minutes away and were the primary grandparents, the ones who got called first for emergencies and invited first to school events and consulted first about major decisions. "Of course there is room, Mom. You are family. We will put you in the guest room, the one with the good mattress and the view of the backyard. The kids can hardly wait, family." The word hung between us like a bridge. I wasn't sure would hold my weight, but that I desperately wanted to trust. I said yes. I said I would book a bus ticket because I didn't drive long distances anymore. Not since my night vision had gotten worse, and highway speeds made me nervous. Jennifer didn't offer to pay for the ticket. And I didn't ask. I still had some money tucked away from my Social Security checks, carefully saved for exactly this kind of emergency. This qualified as an emergency of the heart. After we hung up, I sat in my small apartment and tried to remember the last time someone had wanted me somewhere. Not needed me for practical reasons, or expected me to contribute something useful, but actually wanted my presence just because they enjoyed having me around. It had been years, maybe decades. I booked the ticket online with my neighbor Mrs. Patterson's help, because she is better with computers than I am and more patient with the websites that ask for credit card information and verification codes. I even paid extra for the more comfortable seat, the one with extra legroom and a reclining back, because if I was going to travel 8 hours to see my family, I might as well arrive without my back screaming and my circulation cut off. The extra cost felt like an investment in hope, like putting money toward the possibility that this Christmas might be different, that I might finally be welcomed instead of tolerated. The next day I went shopping, and not just for the children, though I did spend considerable time picking out gifts I thought they would actually enjoy. For Tyler, a science experiment kit that promised to create safe volcanoes and crystal gardens. For Sophia, a craft set with enough materials to make jewelry and decorations for months. I chose things that would give us activities to do together, reasons to sit side by side and create something beautiful. I also bought ingredients for gingerbread cookies, the recipe I had been making since Jennifer was a child. Real molasses, fresh ginger, cinnamon sticks to grind myself. I pictured Tyler standing on a step stool beside me, measuring flour and cracking eggs. I imagined Sophia carefully pressing cookie cutters into the dough, her tongue poking out in concentration the way her mother used to do. And I bought something for myself. A new cardigan in deep burgundy wool, soft enough to feel like luxury against my skin, elegant enough to make me look like someone who belonged in Christmas photos. The kind of sweater that suggested I was worth, including in family memories, worth dressing up for. I packed 4 days early, laying everything out on my bed like preparing for a military inspection. The new cardigan, wrapped in tissue paper. My best slacks, the black ones that didn't show wrinkles. 2 nightgowns, 1 practical cotton, and 1 with lace trim for Christmas morning. Slippers that wouldn't make noise on hardwood floors. Reading glasses and paperback books in case I had quiet time alone. I checked the Denver weather forecast twice daily, wanting to pack appropriately for snow and cold temperatures. I wasn't used to after years in the Arizona desert. I arranged for Mrs. Patterson to water my plants and bring in any packages that might arrive while I was gone. I even bought new Christmas-themed hand towels for Jennifer's guest bathroom, wanting to contribute something useful to their household, wanting to feel like I was adding value rather than just taking up space. The night before I left, I called my other granddaughter, Rebecca. She is Jennifer's daughter from her first marriage, now 25 and living in Seattle, working as a nurse and building a life that seemed solid and purposeful in a way that made me proud. Rebecca is the one who still calls me just to chat, who sends me pictures of her apartment and asks for my cornbread recipe and remembers my birthday without being reminded. She is the one who makes me feel like being a grandmother is something I am actually good at, rather than something I am constantly failing to do correctly. Grandma Dorothy, I am so excited you are going to be with them, she said, when I told her about the Christmas invitation, and I could hear genuine happiness in her voice. I wish I could be there too, but airline tickets were just too expensive this year, and I already took time off for my friend's wedding in November. You take care of yourself. Sweetheart, I told her, meaning it completely. Christmas is just a day. We can celebrate together any time. If only I had known how prophetic those words would turn out to be. The bus ride to Denver was long but peaceful, in a way I hadn't expected. I sat next to a woman about my age who was also traveling to see family. Her lap covered with knitting that looked like it was becoming a baby blanket in soft yellow yarn. First grandchild, she explained, when she noticed me watching her work. My son and his wife are having a girl in February. I wanted to make something special for her. We shared stories about grandchildren and compared photos stored on our phones. She showed me pictures of her son's wedding, of the house they had just bought in Colorado Springs, of the nursery they were preparing with such obvious love and excitement. I showed her pictures of Tyler and Sophia from last year's school events, the ones Jennifer had posted on Facebook that I had saved to my phone. Pictures where both children were smiling and growing and changing in ways I could only observe from a distance. You must be so excited to spend Christmas with them, she said, as we crossed into Colorado. And I nodded, feeling that flutter of anticipation in my chest again. Very excited, I replied. It has been too long since we have had a real Christmas together. Nervous, she asked, and something in her voice suggested she understood the complexity of family relationships, the way love and worry can tangle together, until you are not sure which emotion is stronger. A little, I admitted, but mostly just excited. Really, truly excited. I meant it when I said it. Sitting on that bus, watching snow-covered mountains roll past the window, I was genuinely excited. Not anxious about what was expected of me, or worried about saying the wrong thing, or calculating how long would be appropriate to stay before making excuses to leave. Just excited to be wanted somewhere. When the bus pulled into Denver's Union Station, snow was beginning to fall in the earnest, purposeful way that suggested it meant to stay through the holiday. The kind of Christmas Eve snow that looks like a movie scene, that makes everything clean and magical and full of possibility. I gathered my belongings carefully, checking that I had my purse and my phone and the small bag of gifts I had carried on board, rather than risking them in checked luggage. I stepped off the bus into what I thought would be the beginning of a perfect holiday, into what I believed would be the first Christmas in years, where I truly belonged at the table. Instead, it was the beginning of the clearest lesson I had ever received about my place in my daughter's life. After 47 minutes of waiting in the snow, after checking my phone repeatedly for messages that never came, after watching dozens of other families reunite while I stood alone with my festive red suitcase, I finally accepted what my heart had been trying to tell me all along. They weren't coming. This wasn't a miscommunication, or a traffic delay, or an emergency that had thrown off their timing. This was abandonment, pure and simple. This was being forgotten by people who had promised to remember. I walked to the taxi stand on legs that had gone stiff from cold and disappointment, my suitcase wheels struggling through the accumulating snow. The taxi driver was a middle-aged man with kind eyes and a gentle accent I couldn't place. "Where to?" he asked, and I realized I had no idea. "A hotel," I said. "Somewhere clean and safe. Nothing fancy." "Holiday Inn Express on 17th, he suggested, glancing at me in the rearview mirror with what might have been sympathy. "Nice place. They have got a shuttle back to the airport when you are ready to head home." Home, yes. Eventually I had need to get back to the airport for a return flight. But not yet. First, I needed to sit with this new reality, to understand what had just happened and what it meant for everything I thought I knew about my relationship with my daughter. The hotel room was standard business travel beige. 2 beds with geometric comforters, a desk with a chair that swiveled, a television that promised 47 channels of holiday programming. It was clean and anonymous and honest in a way that felt appropriate for my current situation. No pretense, no false promises, no holiday decorations that suggested joy or belonging. I sat on the edge of one bed and looked at my phone again, scrolling back to that Christmas morning photo that had appeared while I was standing in the snow. The photo was still there. Marcus's parents still sat proudly in their holiday sweaters, the kind of expensive casual wear that suggested they had the time and money to shop for Christmas outfits. The children still played, among toys I hadn't bought them, toys that must have come from other grandparents who had shown up when they said they would. Jennifer still smiled her perfect Christmas morning smile, the one that belonged to someone whose day was going exactly as planned. Complete family, everyone who makes our house a home. I studied Harold and Susan, Marcus's parents, trying to understand something that had always bothered me, but that I had never been able to articulate. They lived in Denver round only 30 minutes from Jennifer's house. They saw the grandchildren every few weeks, attended school plays and soccer games, were called first when someone was sick or needed help. They were built into the fabric of daily life in a way I never would be, could never be, living 800 miles away in a different time zone with a different life. They were the real grandparents. I was the accessory grandparent, the one who got invited when there was extra room at the table or when someone needed to feel generous about including family from far away. I understood then, sitting in that honest hotel room with its beige walls and fluorescent lighting. I wasn't family in the way that mattered. I was seasonal decoration, brought out when the mood struck, stored away when space was needed for the people who really mattered. My phone buzzed with a text message from Jennifer, the first communication I had received from her since arriving in Denver. "Mom, so sorry. Marcus's dad ended up in the ER last night. Food poisoning from something at dinner. We have been at the hospital all morning dealing with insurance and paperwork. Are you at the station? Can you catch a cab to the house? We will reimburse you." I stared at the message for a full minute, reading it 3 times to make sure I understood what she was trying to tell me. Harold had been sitting on the couch in the Christmas morning photo, looking perfectly healthy and holding Tyler on his lap with the robust energy of someone who felt wonderful. Unless they had somehow transported him to and from the emergency room between photo sessions. Unless he had made a miraculous recovery from food poisoning serious enough to require hospitalization. This was a lie. A creative, detailed lie designed to explain away their complete failure to pick me up, or even remember I was supposed to be arriving. A lie that positioned them as victims of circumstance rather than perpetrators of neglect. Even worse, it was a lazy lie. If she was going to lie, she could have at least checked her own social media before constructing the story. I didn't reply to the text. Instead, I turned off my phone and ran a hot bath in the hotel bathtub, using the tiny bottles of shampoo and soap that smelled like nothing in particular. I soaked until my fingers wrinkled, and my back stopped aching from the bus ride, until the chill from standing in the snow finally left my bones. I thought about all the times I had rearranged my life to accommodate Jennifer's family. All the ways I had bent myself into convenient shapes to fit into their schedule and their priorities. The birthday parties where I brought homemade cake and elaborate gifts stayed for exactly the amount of time that felt appropriate, and left after 45 minutes, because the kids get overstimulated with too much attention. The school plays I attended alone, sitting in uncomfortable auditorium seats while Jennifer Liv streamed the performances for Marcus's parents who couldn't make it that particular evening. The graduations where I sat in the back row with other distant relatives, while Harold and Susan got reserved seating in the front, where I watched from afar as they posed for photos with the graduate, while I waited for an invitation that never came. I thought about last Easter, when Jennifer called 3 days before the holiday and said, "Mom, would you mind bringing deviled eggs to dinner?" Susan was going to make them, but she is feeling overwhelmed with everything else she is preparing. I had spent 6 hours preparing 4 dozen perfect deviled eggs, using my mother's recipe that required hand, mixing the filling and carefully piping each one with a star tip. I had driven them across Phoenix traffic in a cooler with ice packs, worrying the whole way that they would shift or spoil in the heat. When I arrived at Jennifer's house, the deviled eggs were placed on a side table with the other appetizers, largely ignored while everyone raved about the store. Bought desserts Marcus's mother had contributed. Susan had brought commercial sheet cake from Costco and individual fruit tarts from the grocery store bakery. But she received more compliments and thanks than I did for my hours of careful preparation. I thought about Tyler's 8th birthday party 6 months ago, how I had sent a generous check for his gift, plus additional money for decorations and party supplies, because Jennifer had mentioned that money was tight and they were trying to make the party special. The check had been for $200, money I could have used for my own needs, but that I gladly gave because I wanted Tyler to have a celebration worthy of his milestone birthday. Jennifer had posted dozens of photos from the party on social media, showing elaborately decorated tables and expensive party favors, and a bounce house rental that must have cost more than my entire contribution. But there wasn't a single shot of my gift being opened or any mention of my contribution to making the party possible. I might as well have been invisible, my generosity absorbed into the general abundance without acknowledgement or gratitude. I thought about the pattern I was finally beginning to see clearly: always giving, always accommodating, always grateful for whatever scraps of inclusion were thrown my way, never questioning whether the relationship was actually reciprocal or whether I was simply subsidizing other people's guilt about neglecting me. Lying in that hotel bathtub on Christmas Eve, watching steam rise from water that was hot enough to ease the perpetual ache in my joints, I finally saw it clearly. I had been subsidizing my daughter's guilt about being a bad daughter, paying for the privilege of being marginally tolerated in my own grandchildren's lives. When I got out of the bath, I wrapped myself in the hotel bathrobe and opened my laptop on the small desk by the window. I did something I had never done before, something that felt like an archaeological dig through my own financial history. I looked up my own bank statements and credit card bills. Every payment I had made to or for Jennifer's family over the past 5 years, traced through electronic records that didn't lie or make excuses or rewrite history to make anyone feel better about their choices. The list was staggering in its length and devastating in its total. Preschool tuition assistance, when Marcus was between jobs, $4,000 spread over 6 months. The down payment for their minivan, when their old car finally died. $3,000 with the promise of repayment that never materialized. Emergency dental work for Sophia, when she broke her front teeth, $800 paid directly to the dentist's office. Summer camp fees for both children, $1,200, so they could attend the same camp as their friends. Christmas and birthday gifts for the past 5 years, easily $3,000 in carefully chosen presents that were often forgotten or replaced by newer, better versions within months. Grocery money during Marcus's brief unemployment, $2,000 transferred in small amounts, so it wouldn't feel like charity. The security deposit for their current house when they moved to a better school district, $5,000 that allowed them to secure the rental they wanted. Auto insurance payments when money was tight, $600 over 3 months. School fundraiser contributions, $800 for various causes and activities. Emergency home repairs when their water heater failed, $900 to prevent them from having to take out a loan. College fund contributions for both children, $2,000 over 2 years, because I wanted them to have opportunities I never had. The total was over $37,000 in 5 years. $37,000 given freely, without expectation of repayment, without strings attached, without any request for gratitude or recognition. In return, I had received occasional thank you texts that felt perfunctory, stilted phone calls on major holidays that lasted exactly long enough to discharge familial obligation, and invitations that were really disguised requests for more financial assistance. This Christmas invitation hadn't been about wanting me there. It had been about positioning for the next request. Maybe they needed help with car repairs or home improvements. Maybe they were hoping I would offer to contribute to the children's college funds, or help with a family vacation they couldn't quite afford. I closed the laptop and ordered room service, something I had never done in my life because it seemed extravagant and unnecessary. A simple dinner, nothing festive. Chicken and rice and vegetables that someone else had prepared, delivered by someone who smiled and wished me a nice evening, without knowing or caring about my personal disappointments. I ate slowly, watching snow fall outside the hotel window in the orange glow of streetlights, and made a decision that would change everything going forward. I wasn't going to their house, not tomorrow, not ever again. I was done being convenient. I was done being grateful for crumbs when I had been serving full meals. I was done pretending that one-sided relationships were better than no relationship at all. The next morning was Christmas Day. I woke up early because decades of habit had trained my body to be useful by 7 of the clock, even when there was no one to be useful for. I dressed in my new burgundy cardigan and my best slacks, not because anyone would see me, but because I wanted to honor the day and respect myself enough to look like I mattered. I took myself to breakfast in the hotel restaurant where there were a few other travelers whose plans had also been disrupted by weather or circumstance or family drama. We nodded at each other with the quiet solidarity of the temporarily displaced, all of us making the best of situations that hadn't gone according to plan. I ordered pancakes with real maple syrup, coffee that was stronger than I usually drink, and fresh orange juice that came in an actual glass instead of a paper cup. It was the best Christmas breakfast I had had in years, maybe because I wasn't cooking it for anyone else, or rushing to clean up before the next obligation, or worrying about whether the food was good enough to deserve approval. At 10:30, my phone rang. Jennifer's name on the screen, probably calling to check on my arrival, or to offer more explanations for yesterday's failure. This time I answered, "Mom." "Thank God you answered. Where are you? We have been so worried." Her voice was bright and cheerful, as if nothing unusual had happened, as if I hadn't spent 47 minutes standing in the snow while they celebrated Christmas morning without me, and posted photos declaring themselves complete. "I am having breakfast," I said calmly, cutting another piece of pancake and watching the syrup pool in the golden brown ridges. "Breakfast. But Mom, we are all ready to open presents. The kids have been asking for you all morning. They want to show you their new toys and give you the cards they made." I almost laughed. Almost the audacity of pretending that they had been thinking about me all morning when their social media posts clearly showed a Christmas celebration that had proceeded without any acknowledgement of my absence. Instead, I said, "I saw the photo." Jennifer? Silence on her end. Complete. Telling silence. What photo? Even now, more pretense, more performance, more refusal to acknowledge what had actually happened. The Christmas morning photo. Your complete family, everyone who makes your house a home. More silence. Then, carefully, Mom. We took that picture yesterday, for the Christmas cards. It wasn't actually Christmas morning. Harold wasn't feeling well, so we did a photo session early. Even now, even caught in an obvious lie, she was constructing elaborate explanations rather than simple truth. Even now, she couldn't admit that they had simply forgotten me, posted a photo without thinking, and only remembered I existed when guilt or obligation kicked in. "I am done," I said quietly, setting down my fork and looking out the restaurant window at families walking through the snow with sleds and children in bright winter coats. Done with what? Done pretending this works. Done being grateful for inclusion that never actually comes. Done paying for the privilege of being forgotten. Mom, you are being dramatic. Dad's still recovering from the food poisoning, but we want you here. The kids really do miss their grandma. I closed my eyes, feeling something settle in my chest that felt like peace mixed with sadness. Even now, she couldn't admit what had really happened, couldn't acknowledge that they had simply forgotten me completely, posted a photo celebrating their completeness without me, and only remembered I existed when my absence became awkward to explain. "Tell the children. I love them," I said. "Tell them Grandma Dorothy had to go home, but I will send their presents in the mail." "Mom, don't do this. You are being unreasonable. We can work this out. Just come to the house, and we will explain everything." "I am being clear," I said. "For the first time in years, I am being absolutely clear about what I will and will not accept." I hung up. 20 minutes later, another call. This time I didn't answer. Then a text, "Mom, please don't leave like this. The kids are upset. We can work this out. Family doesn't give up on family." I stared at that last sentence for a long time. Family doesn't give up on family. The irony was breathtaking. I had spent years not giving up on them, while they gave up on me repeatedly, casually, without apparent thought or regret. I turned off the phone. That afternoon, I changed my bus ticket to an earlier departure. The customer service representative was kind and efficient, probably accustomed to people changing holiday travel plans for reasons they didn't want to explain. "Any particular reason for the change?" she asked, her tone carefully neutral. "Plans fell through," I said simply. "I am ready to go home." I could have stayed another day in Denver, seen some sights, made a small vacation out of the disaster. The city probably had museums and restaurants and holiday events that might have been interesting. But I wanted to go home. I wanted to be in my own space, surrounded by my own things, making my own decisions about how to spend the holiday without any pressure to perform gratitude or accommodation. The bus ride back to Phoenix was quieter than the journey there. Most passengers were sleeping off Christmas dinner or reading new books they had received as gifts. I sat by the window and watched Colorado and New Mexico scroll past in the fading light, thinking about the difference between being disappointed and being educated. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger requires a certain level of surprise, and I was no longer surprised by Jennifer's behavior. I wasn't hurt in the sharp, cutting way I had been hurt earlier. I was clear, absolutely. Finally clear about the difference between being wanted and being useful, between being loved and being convenient. When I got back to my apartment in Phoenix, Mrs. Patterson was waiting with my mail and a concerned expression on her lined face. "How was Christmas, dear?" she asked, holding out a small stack of catalogs and bills. "Educational," I replied, meaning it completely. She looked puzzled but didn't press for details. That is one of the things I appreciate about Mrs. Patterson. She knows when to ask questions and when to simply witness whatever someone is going through without requiring explanations or justifications. I spent the evening unpacking my single suitcase, which still smelled faintly of the hotel soap and shampoo. I hung up the burgundy cardigan in my closet, next to the other clothes I had bought with hope and worn with disappointment. I wasn't angry at the clothes or sorry I had bought them. They were still beautiful. I was still worth dressing nicely for, even if the only person who saw me was myself. I sat at my small kitchen table with a cup of chamomile tea and thought about what came next. I had learned something important in Denver, something that would change how I approached all of my relationships going forward. But learning and acting are different things entirely. The next morning, I called my bank and asked to speak with a financial advisor about my accounts. All of them. I need to make some changes, I told the young man who took my call, his voice professional and patient. Starting immediately, he scheduled an appointment for that afternoon. While I waited, I went through my files methodically, pulling out every record of money I had given to Jennifer and Marcus over the years. I made copies of everything, organized them by date and amount, created a spreadsheet that showed the pattern of my generosity and their acceptance. I wasn't planning to ask for repayment. I am not cruel, and I understood that gifts freely given couldn't be retroactively converted to loans just because I was disappointed in the relationship. But I needed to see the full scope of what I had been doing, how I had been approaching love like a transaction and generosity like a way to purchase belonging. At the bank, I suspended all automatic transfers to Jennifer's accounts. There had been 3 of them: a monthly contribution to the children's savings accounts, a quarterly transfer to help with household expenses, and an emergency fund that Jennifer could access if unexpected bills arose. I closed the joint savings account I had opened for emergencies that had become Jennifer's regular source of extra cash whenever money was tight. I changed the beneficiaries on my retirement accounts and my life insurance policy. Any particular reason for these changes? The advisor asked gently, his pen poised over paperwork that would formalize my decision. I am redirecting my generosity, I said, toward people who recognize it and reciprocate it. That is certainly your right, he said. Would you like me to set up new automatic transfers to different accounts? Not yet, I said. I need to think about what reciprocal generosity looks like before I commit to anything new. That evening, I called Rebecca in Seattle. My conversation with her was always the highlight of any week when we managed to connect. But tonight, I needed to talk to someone who knew the family dynamics without being caught up in the middle of them. Grandma Dorothy. How was Christmas with Mom and the kids? I told her everything. Not dramatically, not seeking sympathy or trying to make Jennifer look bad. Just factually, what had happened, what I had discovered, what I had decided. Rebecca was quiet for a long time after I finished the story. Finally, she said, "Grandma, I am so sorry. I had no idea they were treating you like that. I mean, I knew Mom could be thoughtless sometimes, but I didn't realize it was this bad. You couldn't have known, sweetheart. You have your own life to live, your own relationships to manage. This isn't your responsibility to fix, but still, you shouldn't have to deal with that alone. You shouldn't have to choose between being treated badly and being alone." "I am not alone," I said, meaning it. "I have you, and I have myself. That is more than I had before, when I was so busy trying to earn love that I forgot I already deserved it." We talked for another hour about her job at the hospital, about the boyfriend who was talking about proposing, about her plans for the new year. Real conversation that flowed naturally, without any agenda or underlying tension. Not performance or obligation, just connection between two people who genuinely enjoyed each other's company. When we hung up, I felt fuller than I had in months. Maybe years. Over the next week, Jennifer called 4 more times. I didn't answer any of the calls, but I listened to the voicemail she left, each one growing progressively more frustrated and accusatory. "Mom, I know you are upset, but this is getting ridiculous. We had a legitimate emergency, and you are acting like we did this on purpose. Mom, the kids don't understand why their grandma will not talk to them. You are punishing children for something that wasn't their fault. Mom, Marcus's father really was sick. I can show you the hospital paperwork if you want. You are being completely unfair about this. Mom, if you don't call me back by tomorrow, I am going to assume something is wrong and call the police for a welfare check. This silent treatment is childish and manipulative. That last message made me smile. Despite myself, the police. As if my silence was a crime requiring intervention. As if my refusal to accept poor treatment was evidence of mental instability rather than mental health. I didn't call back. Instead, I wrote a letter. Not to Jennifer, because she had proven that she wasn't ready to hear what I needed to say. Instead, I wrote to Tyler and Sophia. Age, appropriate, but honest. Explaining my absence in terms they could understand without poisoning their relationship with their mother. Dear Tyler and Sophia, your grandma Dorothy loves you very much, and I always will. But I will not be visiting as often anymore because sometimes adults need to make changes in their lives to stay healthy and happy. I want you to know that you are wonderful children and you deserve adults in your life who show up when they promise to, who remember that you matter, and who treat you with kindness and respect. If you ever want to write to me or call me when you are older, I will always be here for you. You can find me at the same address and phone number as always. Your presence in my life has been one of my greatest joys. I hope you grow up knowing that you are worthy of love that shows up consistently, not just when it is convenient. Love always. Grandma Dorothy. I sent the letter along with the gifts I had brought to Denver. The science kit for Tyler, and the craft set for Sophia. I also included a check made out to Jennifer. Not a large amount. Just enough to cover the bus ticket I had wasted and the hotel room I had needed. A closing of accounts. A final transaction that made it clear this was an ending rather than a pause. 2 weeks later, Rebecca called with news that didn't surprise me, but that still felt like vindication. Mom's been calling everyone in the family, she said, her voice tight with frustration, telling them you had some kind of breakdown at Christmas, that you are being unreasonable and cutting off the grandchildren for no good reason. And what did you tell them? I told them the truth, about the bus station, about the photo, about how she has been treating you for years while you kept giving her money and making excuses for her behavior. How did they respond? Uncle David said he wasn't surprised at all. Aunt Carol said Mom has always been selfish and entitled. Cousin Mike said he stopped loaning her money years ago because she never paid anyone back and never seemed grateful for the help she received. I absorbed this information quietly, feeling pieces of a puzzle click into place. My family had been watching Jennifer's behavior for years, recognizing patterns I had been too close to see clearly. They just hadn't said anything to me because they assumed I knew and was choosing to accept it. Why didn't anyone tell me before? I asked. I think we all figured you knew, and were choosing to accept it because she is your daughter. Nobody wanted to interfere in your relationship or make you choose between your family and your principles. That made sense, and it also made me realize how completely I had been isolating myself by accepting unacceptable treatment. By not setting boundaries or requiring reciprocity, I had taught everyone around me that my feelings and needs didn't matter as much as keeping peace. I should have spoken up sooner, Rebecca continued. I should have said something when I saw how she treated you at family gatherings, how she always seemed to be asking for something instead of just enjoying your company. You were protecting yourself, I said. That is what smart people do. I am just sorry it took me so long to learn the same lesson. Spring came early to Phoenix that year, arriving in February with warm days and cool nights that made everything bloom at once. By March, I had settled into a new routine that felt sustainable and nourishing in ways my old life hadn't. I volunteered at the library 3 days a week, reading to children whose grandparents weren't available or involved in their lives. These children listened with the kind of attention that comes from hunger, not just for stories, but for adult attention that was focused and genuine. I joined a bridge club that met Tuesday evenings at the community center. A group of 8 women who took the game seriously, but laughed easily, and included me without requiring any backstory or explanation about why I was suddenly available for regular commitments. I started taking a watercolor class at the senior center, discovering that I had some natural talent for mixing colors and capturing light, skills I had never had time to develop when all my energy was focused on maintaining relationships that didn't sustain me in return. I was building a life that didn't revolve around waiting for other people to remember I existed. A life based on activities I enjoyed, and people who showed up consistently and reciprocally. In April, Rebecca came to visit for a long weekend. She had saved up vacation time and money for the trip, wanting to see me and spend time together without any agenda beyond connection and mutual enjoyment. We spent 4 days exploring Phoenix together. The desert botanical garden, where we walked slowly through displays of cacti and succulents while she told me about her work at the hospital. The musical instrument museum, where we listened to recordings from around the world and marveled at the creativity human beings had developed for making music. Small restaurants with good food and no pressure to rush through meals. Shops where we browsed without buying much, just enjoying the process of looking at beautiful things together. We talked about everything and nothing. Her relationship with her boyfriend, who seemed kind and steady and committed to building a life with her, my watercolor class, and the landscapes I was learning to paint. Her plans for continuing education and maybe specializing in pediatric nursing. On her last evening, we sat on my small patio, watching the sunset paint the mountains pink and orange, both of us wrapped in light blankets against the desert evening chill. "Grandma," she said quietly, "I am proud of you. For what? For standing up for yourself, for recognizing that you deserve better, for not apologizing for taking up space or requiring respect." Those words settled into my chest like medicine, like recognition of something I had done right, rather than something I had failed to achieve. "I love your mother," I told her. "I always will, but I cannot keep paying for the privilege of being tolerated. I cannot keep subsidizing my own invisibility." "I know," she said, "and honestly, I think this might be better for her too, in the long run. She needs to learn that actions have consequences, that relationships require effort from both people." That night, after Rebecca left for the airport, I sat at my kitchen table and wrote something I had never written before. Not a letter to anyone else, but a promise to myself. I will not apologize for requiring respect. I will not subsidize my own invisibility. I will not accept less than I give simply to maintain relationships that drain me rather than nourishing me. I taped it to my bathroom mirror, where I would see it every morning while brushing my teeth and getting ready to face whatever the day would bring. By summer, I had heard through the family grapevine that Jennifer and Marcus were struggling financially. Without my regular contributions, they were having trouble making ends meet in the lifestyle they had become accustomed to. Marcus had taken a second job delivering food in the evenings. Jennifer had started working retail part-time on weekends. I felt no satisfaction in their struggle. No vindication or sense of justice served. Just a quiet certainty that their problems were not mine to solve anymore. That my money was better spent on things that brought me joy rather than obligations that brought me stress. In July, Tyler called me directly. He had somehow gotten my number and called when his parents weren't around, his voice older and more serious than I remembered from our last conversation. "Grandma Dorothy? It is Tyler. Tyler. Sweetheart, how are you?" "I am okay," Mom said. "You were sick and couldn't visit anymore, but Rebecca told me that wasn't true." "Are you really sick?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. I could lie, could protect Jennifer's narrative and maintain everyone's comfort, could make it easier for Tyler to understand why his grandmother had disappeared from his life, or I could tell the truth, appropriately. "But honestly, I am not sick in my body," I said carefully. "But I was getting sick in my heart from being forgotten too often. So I decided to spend time with people who remember that I matter." He was quiet for a moment, processing this information with the seriousness of someone older than his years. Then, Mom forgot to pick you up at Christmas, didn't she? Smart boy, observant, already learning to read between the lines of adult explanations and recognize when stories didn't match up with evidence. Yes, I said simply. She did. I am sorry, Grandma. I missed you that day. I asked where you were. And Mom said you decided not to come. But that didn't make sense because you always come when you say you will. I missed you too, sweetheart. But it is not your fault when adults make choices that hurt other adults. Children shouldn't have to fix problems they didn't create. We talked for a few more minutes about school and his friends and a science project he was working on. That reminded me of the kit I had bought him for Christmas. Real conversation. The kind we used to have before family visits became so complicated by adult drama and unspoken resentments. When he hung up, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. Not hope that Jennifer would change or that our relationship would magically repair itself. I had learned enough to know that real change requires acknowledgement and effort that she seemed unwilling to provide. Hope that Tyler was learning important lessons about respect and consequences. Hope that he would grow up understanding that love requires showing up consistently. Not just saying the words. Hope that he would recognize healthy relationships and insist on them in his own life. In August, I received a letter from Jennifer. Not an email or a text, but an actual handwritten letter delivered by mail, which suggested she was taking this communication more seriously than our previous exchanges. Mom, it began. I know you are angry with me. I know I made mistakes at Christmas, but you are punishing the children for my failures, and that is not fair to them. They miss their grandmother, and they don't understand why you have cut them out of your life. I read the letter twice, looking for any acknowledgement of what had actually happened, any recognition of the pattern of behavior that had led to my decision. Even now, even after 8 months of silence from me, she couldn't admit what had really occurred. I was angry. I was punishing. The failure was minimized to mistakes rather than recognized as a deliberate choice to prioritize other people over me. No recognition that she had forgotten me completely. No acknowledgement of the years of taking my financial support for granted while providing minimal emotional support in return. No understanding that my withdrawal wasn't punishment, but self-preservation. I didn't reply to the letter. Instead, I called my lawyer, a kind man who had helped me with basic legal needs for several years and who understood family complications without requiring detailed explanations. I need to update my will, I told him, and I want to establish a trust fund for my granddaughter Rebecca. He didn't ask why I was making these changes or what had prompted this decision. Lawyers see family drama every day. They understand that love and money and respect don't always flow in the same directions, that sometimes the people who deserve inheritance and the people who expect it are entirely different. 2 weeks later, my estate was reorganized completely. Rebecca would inherit my apartment, my savings, my small investment accounts, everything I had accumulated over a lifetime of careful financial management. Jennifer would receive a token amount, just enough to show that the omission was intentional rather than oversight. I felt no bitterness making these changes, just clarity. I was directing my resources toward the person who had shown up consistently over the years, who had treated me with dignity and respect, who had recognized my worth beyond my ability to provide financial assistance. Fall came quietly that year, arriving gradually with cooler mornings and shorter days that felt like permission to slow down and focus inward. I celebrated my 73rd birthday with Mrs. Patterson and 2 friends from Bridge Club, a small gathering with good food and real conversation, and no pressure to perform gratitude for gifts I didn't want or need. Rebecca called from Seattle, and we talked for over an hour about her engagement. Her boyfriend had finally proposed, and they were planning a simple wedding for the following spring that sounded perfect for both of them. She wanted to know if I would come, if I would be part of their celebration, and hearing the genuine desire in her voice made me understand the difference between being invited because someone wants you there and being invited because someone feels obligated to include you. No one forgot my birthday this year. No one treated my celebration like an obligation or an afterthought. No one asked for money or favors or anything beyond my presence and participation. On Thanksgiving Day, I volunteered at a shelter serving dinner to homeless families. I helped serve turkey and stuffing and green beans to people who were grateful for basic kindness, who said thank you and meant it, who looked me in the eye like I was visible and valuable. It was the best Thanksgiving I had had in years, maybe decades. That evening, as I was cleaning up my small kitchen after a quiet dinner for one, my phone rang. Rebecca, calling from Seattle, where she was celebrating with her fiancé family. People who had welcomed her completely and made space for her at their table without reservation. Grandma Dorothy, I just wanted to call and tell you I am thankful for you, for your strength, for the example you have set about standing up for yourself, for showing me what it looks like to require respect instead of just hoping for it. Thank you, sweetheart. That means everything to me. I love you, she said, and I could hear the smile in her voice, not because of what you give me or what you do for me, just because of who you are, just because you are my grandmother, and I am proud to be your granddaughter. After we hung up, I sat in my living room with a cup of tea and looked around at my small apartment. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't big enough for hosting holiday gatherings, but it was mine, peaceful, honest, full of things I had chosen and activities I enjoyed and relationships that nourished me rather than draining me. I thought about that Christmas Eve in Denver, standing in the snow with my festive red suitcase, watching other families embrace, while I waited for people who had forgotten I existed. That night had been an ending, certainly. The end of accepting unacceptable treatment. The end of subsidizing my own invisibility. The end of being grateful for crumbs when I deserved the whole meal. But it had also been a beginning. The beginning of understanding that I was worth more than convenient tolerance. That love without respect is just another kind of transaction. That family should be about showing up consistently, not just showing off when it is convenient. I had stopped waiting for other people to remember my value. I had started insisting on it, and in the quiet of my own space, surrounded by plants I had chosen, and books I wanted to read, and furniture that reflected my own taste rather than anyone else's expectations. I had found something I hadn't felt in years. I had found peace. I had found self-respect. I had found the difference between being alone and being lonely, between having family and being treated like family. I had found myself. If you are reading this, and you recognize yourself in my story, if you have ever stood waiting for people who forgot to care, if you have ever subsidized your own invisibility in the name of keeping peace, if you have ever confused financial generosity with emotional love, listen to me. You can stop. You can choose differently. You can require the respect you have been giving freely to others without receiving it in return. Your love matters. Your presence has value. Your time is precious. Your financial resources are yours to direct toward people and causes that appreciate them. Don't spend any of it on people who treat you like seasonal decoration, who remember you exist only when they need something, who post photos of their complete family while you are standing in the snow, waiting for them to remember you matter. Find your Rebecca. Find your bridge club. Find your volunteer work. Find your watercolor class. Find the people and places that see you clearly and celebrate your existence rather than tolerating it or exploiting it. You deserve better than being forgotten at the bus station while other people celebrate your absence. You deserve to matter. What would you have done in Dorothy's situation? Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and self-respect? Share your thoughts in the comments. Sometimes we need to know we are not alone in these difficult decisions. And if this story resonated with you, please share it with someone who might need to hear that their value doesn't depend on what they can give to ungrateful people.